All right, the Steve Austin Show Unleashed is sponsored in part this week by FanDuel. Football is back, which means FanDuel is back. FanDuel is fantasy football for everyday fans. There are new contests starting every week. There's something for everyone at FanDuel. Lots of contests to choose from, starting at just $1. Just pick a contest, choose your team, and watch your score in real time. Over 2.5 million players have won a cash prize playing fantasy sports on FanDuel. Sign up today. Just go to FanDuel.com, click the Join Now button, and use my code AUSTIN. Don't get left out this NFL season. Try FanDuel for free with no deposit required. Visit FanDuel.com to claim your free contest and play for a share of $10,000. Just sign up using my promo code AUSTIN. That's FanDuel.com, promo code AUSTIN. Void where prohibited.
The following program is a podcast1.com production.
He started in a small town in Texas. Worked his ass off to become one of the most famous wrestlers of all time.
We're gonna take care of business tonight, and that's the bottom line.
And now he's dominating the world of on-demand audio. And he's doing it for the working man.
This is a damn good outlet for me to spew the bullshit off my brain.
Yeah! This is Steve Austin Unleashed.
All right, everybody, welcome to Steve Austin Show. I am coming to you from the mean streets of Los Angeles, California. Today, I got a good podcast for you, a podcast that I very much enjoyed doing for about an hour and a half. I'm shooting the breeze with Kenny Bolin, former manager over at Ohio Valley Wrestling and the manager of Bolin Services from back in the day. God damn it, Kenny's a lifelong wrestling fan, a diehard Jerry Lawler fan. He'll have them guys that pass through OVW. Kenny dealt with, managed a lot of them, just a wealth of information, highly opinionated, knows his shit, and just had a great time talking to him. I tell you what, I was able to fire up Skype and use the video feature as well because Kenny has a setup there in his house in Kentucky. And you're able to kind of see the person that you're talking with. It really helps out on the Skype conversations as I try to do more in-person interviews these days. But, man, just shooting the breeze with Kenny was a lot of fun because it was so easy. And just talking about some of the good old days, talking about Jerry Lawler, superstar Bill Dundee, some Dutch Mantel stuff, a lot of different things. And, goddamn, it was just a good time talking to him. We talked for about an hour and a half. So I'm going to keep the open of this podcast very short so we can get into the podcast with Kenny Bolin. And I'll have Kenny on again. We're going to talk a little bit about Walking Dead. It turns out he's as big a fan of that show as I am. And shit, we were talking on the phone yesterday for about 30 minutes just about the angles, the characters, and all the shit going on Walking Dead. And he's a big fan of Negan. Of course, Negan is the white-hot heel over there who came in there and just opened up a can of whoop ass and just got some scorching heat. And I'm waiting for the Rick and the babyfaces to fire up a furious comeback when they kick off this next season. But holy smoke, that guy's on fire. You talk about a heel. That guy is awesome. Anyway, enough about that. We'll talk about that on a future podcast once we kick off that next season. The Starmaker, Kenny Bolin, is coming up. But first, big ups to TrueCar. When you're looking to buy a car, it's important that you're getting real pricing on actual inventory. Often enough, this is not the case as people configure cars online, only later to find out they are not available. But with TrueCar, you get real pricing on actual inventory. This is not pricing from TrueCar, but from an actual dealer, and even more so, a local certified dealer of your choosing that is committed to offering you a competitive market price. TrueCar users are more likely to enjoy a faster buying process when they connect with TrueCar certified dealers. There are over 13,000 TrueCar certified dealers nationwide. When you're ready to buy, visit TrueCar to enjoy a more confident car buying experience. Some features are not available in all states.
Hello, this is Coach Jim Harbaugh with my esteemed colleague and co-host JT Rogan. And we're excited to announce our new podcast, Attack Each Day, the Harbaugh's Podcast, that's coming to Podcast One.
Each week we'll be talking to different members of the Harbaugh family along with athletes, celebrities, and unique guests.
On different episodes, we'll have my dad Jack, my brother John, my sister Joni, my wife Sarah, and even my kids from time to time. We'll have great guests each week, and we'll attack each podcast with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
Sounds pretty good to me. So join us each Tuesday on Attack Each Day, the Harbaugh's podcast here on Podcast One. Also make sure to subscribe on podcastone.com, on the new Podcast One app, or at Apple Podcasts. And Coach, who's got it better than us?
I know the answer to that, JT. Nobody.
This is Steve Austin Unleashed.
Holy smokes. I got Starmaker, Kenny Bolin on the other end of the line. I'm sitting there talking with him. Hell, I talked with him yesterday for about 30 minutes. We weren't even trying to talk about The Walking Dead, and I should have hit the record button because we damn near had a podcast. Kenny, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's just a thrill and an honor to be here today, and I want to let you know that this has been a hell of a summer for me. This is kind of a bucket list of podcast. Earlier this year, I did Chris Jericho's show, and that was a thrill. I did Dinner with the King with Jerry the King Lawler. I also did, let me make sure I get this right here, Ringside Podcast with Daniel and Jeremy right here in Louisville, Kentucky. I did their show. That just got me 4 dinners. And now with you. So this is the bucket list of my podcast dreams. This is the thrill for me, Steve.
God damn it, Kenny, we're scraping the bottom of that bucket if you're down here finally on my show. Hey, how'd you hook up with Chris Jericho? Did you know him from days gone by? Did he ever come through OVW or what?
Well, I knew him from his first days here. If you'll remember, when Jim Cornette was running Smoky Mountain Wrestling, Jericho and Storm got their American starts down there as the Thrill Seekers. And knew Jericho from there a little bit. You know, I didn't interact with him a whole lot because I was just more or less a part-time announcer with Jimmy at that time and a little bit of backstage stuff. But and got to know a lot of the guys down there. And then, of course, he helped us out here at OVW a few times. He came through, and I think he wrestled Nick Dinsmore. Had a real good match at the Louisville Gardens. You know about the Louisville Gardens. You put in many, many appearances there.
God dang, Louisville was Tuesday, every Tuesday, because Monday was Memphis, Tuesday, Louisville, Wednesday, Evansville, Thursday, spot show, get on the bus, drive to Dallas for Friday, get back on the bus, drive to Memphis for Saturday, and then Saturday night, you work TV there in Memphis, and then you get on the bus, go pick up your car from the spot show, work the fairgrounds, Nashville. Sunday, most likely had a day off, but you could be working as well, so you damn right. Hey, man, what was, real quickly about Jericho from way back in his formative years? Yeah. You know, the one thing that's always impressed me about Chris, first of all, the guy works his ass off. But the damn, he's got over in every territory that he's been in. And you've seen a lot of damn stuff over there, you know, where you grew up as far as wrestling business. Right. You know, what were your thoughts on Chris? Did you figure back then he would have as long and as successful of a run as he ended up having?
I hope this don't sound like a backhanded slap in the face, but when I saw him at Smoky Mountain, I thought he was going to be a very entertaining tag team wrestler. And then when he went to WCW, and I didn't deem him as being extremely over there when he was the Lionheart, I believe that's what he was called, Chris Jericho. And then all of a sudden, he's coming to Raw, and that countdown clock hit, and they had that background music. And when he stepped out to go one-on-one with The Rock, he was a star. And did I ever dream that day was coming for him? No. I knew he would be around. I thought he'd be a great tag team wrestler. Never dreamed he could do a promo like that because he didn't do any of them in Smoky Mountain like that. And my God, no, he's one of them that blew me away. I had success for him, but not to the level that he obtained, and man, still had. I
remember seeing him down there in WCW. Hell, I can't guess. I'd gone on to WWF at the time. I can't even remember. But I remember watching Chris on WCW TV. I guess I was in New York. But I just see that long-haired guy, good-looking guy, good work. He always built his matches up, always put the walls of Jericho in there or whatever it's called back in the day. He just knew he was just real scrappy. And you got to get up real early in the morning if you want to try to outwork Chris Jericho. I think that was probably instilled in him, by his father, who was, I think, a really well-known hockey player. But, man, Chris was a hustler. And I remember, watching that guy, and, he wasn't the biggest guy in the world, but just that hair, the way he carried himself, he always carried himself like a star. He acted like a star. He had the attitude of a star. And then when he came into New York, when they came out with that entrance for him, and he started lighting the mic up. And, you know, all these years that I've known Chris now, and we've always kind of traveled in different circles, but a lot of times before the shows were starting, it'd be me, him, and Bubba Ray, guys, you know, rock and roll guys, sitting there talking music trivia, because Chris knows everything about everything.
Does do that.
Yeah, and so we're back there talking music, but of course I got to know Chris pretty damn well. But, you know, that guy, he jumped off the page at me when he was down there, and when he finally got to New York, and he just started setting that place on fire. And I'll tell you what, you know, and one thing that I think, I'll say this just as a teaching tool for some of the guys over there at NXT or whatever, man, Chris wasn't the biggest guy in the world to come through any federation that he was ever in. But, man, the guy always had, you know, the balls to strike up a relationship, you know, with whoever was in charge and go in there and voice his opinions, his ideas, and, you know, get his shit in from a creative standpoint. Chris was very hands-on, and he took the bull by the horns and the tiger by the tail. And I think that was a big part of his success, was him not resting back or laying back waiting for things to happen. He was going to go, and he could, you know, end up getting a little bit of heat on himself to a degree, but that's been, you know, I think everybody that tries to push forward for themselves, and probably I did as well, because I was a hands-on type guy. But I've got to give that guy a lot of credit for taking the bull by the horns and taking control of his destiny at a very young age, and just having the balls to go out there. And, you know, guy could work his ass off. He could do everything in the world. He could work any kind of style you wanted. And he was just, he wasn't the biggest guy in the world, but he was extremely believable, and people loved him when he was a baby, and when he was a heel, they despised him.
Where did those promos come from out of the blue? Like, he went from what he was doing in TNA, well, not TNA, but WCW, to what he came to day one with WWE. He walked out there with the confidence of a Rock, of the Stone Cold Steve Austin, of an Undertaker, and he thought he was one of you guys. I mean, he thought he was top 4 the day he walked through the curtain.
Perception is reality, too, and the people bought into it. But I don't really remember a whole lot of his promos from WCW, Kenny. Were they just par or average or what?
I saw par, and when I heard that he was coming to the WWE, the rumors were floating around, even though it was a reasonably well-kept secret. I didn't, number one, WWE didn't totally create him. He was coming from the other guys, as they used to call it back then, and I didn't think he would get the chance, to be honest with you. I've gathered that if Vince didn't create you, then you weren't going to make it. Coming from somewhere else. I'm wrong about that, because it's happened a few times now. And like CM Punk, when he came from basically ROH, I didn't think he would get the opportunity to do what he did. I thought he was talented. I thought he would have days of shining moments, but never did I dream he would get over to the level that he got, because I didn't think he'd get a chance to do it.
Hey, man, what were your thoughts? God dang, we're all over the place, just shooting the breeze. And Chris Jericho, on a final note on him, you know, he just wrapped up, you know, another tour with those guys, and I know he's out with Fozzy, his rock and roll band. He'll probably come back and work a few angles here or there. Maybe he'll work a Mania. I don't know what he's going to do. I try to stay in touch with Chris every now and then, but I mean, man, that guy, as soon as they want him in the Hall of Fame, he's going in the Hall of Fame.
Right, I would agree with that. One other thing I want to say about Chris Jericho, and I know this will probably strike with your heart as well, I'm extremely thankful for you for a couple of reasons, and that is definitely for getting Rico Constantino an opportunity in the WWE. Not a lot of people know this, but Rico had been cut. He was done. He was on his 90 days, to where they pay you for 90 days and then good luck to you. You come down and worked with us at, I believe it was Christmas Chaos. It got canceled once due to snow. Came back, did it again, sold it out again. And you worked with Rico, and myself was in the ring. I got to buy you beer that night, so that was pretty cool. And the only beer I ever drank in my life was this man right here, Stone Cold Steve Austin. And but you loved Rico, you believed in him, and when you found out he'd been cut, you went to bat with myself, Danny Davis, Jim Cornette, and went to Stephanie McMahon and said, hey, we're paying this guy for 90 days anyway. Let's put him on the road. Let's see what he's got. And if he sticks, let's keep him. And if he doesn't, let him go. And you went to bat for him, and you got him 4 to 5 years extended onto his career. And where Jericho figures into this ad, Rico was in real bad health about a year or so ago and needed help. And I started a fundraiser for him and raised a few $1,000s along with Cauliflower Alley. And I want you to know that Chris Jericho helped somebody get a GoFundMe going. And Chris Jericho, to my knowledge, the only current star that was working there at WWE who had worked with him, donated $3,000. And that he was the biggest donator of everybody. And just what a good guy. And I heard he's even helped Rip Rogers out with a GoFundMe donation, and just a hell of a guy, man. I mean, he could easily say, I just ain't got time for this. I'm a big star. Don't bother me. But he's not that way. And ultimate respect for Chris Jericho.
Hey, man, and when you mentioned GoFundMe's, it's a interesting thing because I just got a text message from Rip Rogers the other day. I guess they've got a fundraiser for Matt Capitelli. It's a benefit show. Yeah. Do you have the date on that, Kenny?
You know what? I don't have it in front of me. It is. It's coming up soon. It's here in September. And as a matter of fact, Ken Doan contacted me wanting to know if there were sponsors that were flying in any of the former talents here because he wanted to compete on the show. But apparently plane ticket's a little stiff for him these days. And I can certainly understand that if I couldn't afford to fly out to California to see you either. So it's in mid-September and they're raising money for him. And he's not doing real well right now. And I love Capitelli. God, you want to talk about one of the good guys. He is one of the good guys. And never a negative word anybody ever said about Matt Capitelli, maybe other than when Bob Holly went off on him on the Tough Enough thing. And I know you and Bob are pretty good friends. Me and Bob were not. And he didn't like me. I didn't like him. That's just how that cookie crumbled. But God, I don't know one person who'll say a bad word about Matt Capitelli. And we certainly wish him the best. And I will forward you that information. I'll get it to you the minute we're off the show here.
Yeah, but I just told Rip Rogers yesterday that I would make mention of it on the podcast. So that's coming up in mid-September.
Yeah, It's on my wall at /Starmaker Bolin on Facebook, and I'm promoting it on there. And I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not in the best of love with OVW since I left 5-6 years ago. But you put all that aside. This is a fundraiser for a damn good man, and I love him like a little son. I mean, he's just a hell of a guy, and I wish him the very best. And I want this thing to be successful, and I greatly appreciate you bringing that up. I'm very pleased with that.
What is the situation with Matt?
Well, he as you know, probably he's been dealing with brain tumors off and on ever since he got hit in the head with that kendo stick on Raw. That was basically where they discovered it from. They had to do those scans on him, and that's where they discovered it. And it looked like he was in remission. It looked like everything was going fine. And as a matter of fact, he was a trainer at OVW, and he was the reason that I would send people there. I said, this is a good guy. He will train you right. Class act. He won't BS you. He'll take care of you. And as long as he's there, I will certainly refer people to go deal with him. And then apparently it came back, and in all honesty, Steve, it's not good. And I'm hoping, he can't work right now. And a friend of mine has taken over his shifts at the gym that he was training at, Rocco Bellagio. He's been a hell of a guy through this. And we're just all really just hoping for the best and hoping things go his way. But he's facing an uphill battle right now.
Hey, man, so best of luck to Matt Capitelli, and if you can participate in that fundraiser down there in that neck of the woods, by all means do so, and Kenny will put some information up.
Yeah, it'll be at the OVW Arena. Everybody around here knows where that is, on Old Shepherdsville Road, and the date escapes me, but I will get the date up on when that's going down, and hopefully everybody can participate and help him out.
Hey, man, we're all over the place today. We're just shooting a breeze, but you said I guess there's no love lost between yourself and OVW. Why? What happened? What transpired? What went down?
Well, the biggest part of it relates back to Rico. And if you don't mind me telling the truth about it, I'm happy to tell it. I retired right at 5 years ago. It'll be 5 years in September. And I retired due to I didn't like the direction that OVW was going in. And on top of that, my health was not really letting me manage anymore. I was strictly doing commentary, and I didn't like what I was calling. The talent had gone way down. The WWE deal was over. The TNA deal was over. And the Danny was not full hands-on the direction of the company. As a matter of fact, his hands weren't on at all. It was the inmates running the asylum, and I didn't care for that. And so I just politely stepped away, told Danny it was due to health reasons, that I was moving to Indiana, and hopefully if things got better, maybe one day I could come back, because there were some changes there I was wanting to happen before I would ever consider coming back. Well, it took a long time for those changes to happen, and then finally they did, but then some attitudes had changed, and then some still the inmates were running the asylum. It wasn't Danny Davis. And so it was just best that I not come back. So then it comes to Rico needing help. And I put out the post to everybody, hey, we're raising some money for Rico Constantino. This money is going directly into his bank account. I told him I was going to do this. He told me, no, please don't. I don't want any attention about this. I said, Rico, you need help. So ordinarily I would take your word and do what you asked me, but I'm not going to do it this time. You're going to get some help. So I formed a account for him for money to be directly deposited into his account the day it was donated, the day it went into his account. GoFundMe set up. The only thing I didn't like about GoFundMe is they take 8 to 10% of his money, and I didn't care for that, but you know, it beats nothing, and it raised a good lick of money as well. So I contact Jim Cornette, Danny Davis, Dean Hill, the voice of OVW since day one, my broadcast partner for quite some time. And for whatever reason, they said that there was a reason they were not going to donate and help Rico, that they had heard something and they didn't have it verified. Well, I knew what they had heard, and I knew what the accusations were, and I knew they weren't true. Mark Henry had stood up for him. Jackie, if you remember Jackie, of course, Miss Texas.
Yes.
Obviously know her. And that was good enough for me. If they stood up for Rico and said this didn't happen, that was good enough for me. Well, they used that as a reason not to help Rico. And I said, hey, wait a minute. He's a brother. I mean, he's part of the family. And regardless of what he did, whether he did or didn't do it, he's a dying man right now, and he needs our help. And I'm not going to accept, well, we heard this and we're not going to help. We're not asking for much. We're asking for those of us that are capable to donate $100. Chris Jericho's already donated $3,000. Chris Jericho was by his side and worked with him. If this crap were true that you're all talking about, Chris Jericho would know it. But you know what? He helped anyway, whether it's true or not. But I'm telling you, it's not. Rico says it's not, and Jericho says it's not. Mark Henry says it's not, so does Miss Jacqueline. Good enough for me. They still refuse to help. I eliminated all contact with them. I blocked them on all social media, and I refused to have anything to do with him and swore I'd never set foot in there again, because he's a brother. He should have been helped. Most of us did. He was raised well over $10,000, and that helped him get his medications. It helped him get his rent paid. It helped him get his car payment paid his car insurance, got him food. He was eating one meal a day, mainly tuna, and he was in a bad way. Well, this bought some time to finally get some disability coming his way, and not even the police department that he was working for would help him. They kind of turned their back on him, and no one from WWE was offering any help other than Chris Jericho. And just very sad to me. I mean, God.
What were the allegations from where the heat was coming?
You, I'm sure, were there when this happened. You remember the Vince has it big for Martin Luther King Day.
Right.
And it's always attributed to the beginning of the show. And Rico was backstage, and another promotion, another thing from CNN or whatever, talking about it being Martin Luther King Day. Well, apparently it had just dominated the news all day long, and every time Rico turned around, it was something about Martin Luther King Day. And Rico said, oh my God, not again. We're quite aware of what the day is. Good Lord, let's talk about something else. And he was just sick of hearing about Martin Luther King Day. Wasn't anything against Martin Luther King. And trust me, no one knows Rico Constantino better than me. He is officially my best friend now. And if there was a racist bone in his body, because that's not me, it's not what I stand for, me and Rico would have serious problems. That is the least racist man on the planet Earth that I know of. And so Booker T overheard this, and I like Booker T. I've worked with Booker a few times, and I've never had any problems with him, even though I was told before he got here to expect problems out of him. Well, I never got them. He was a class act every time he came here, treated my son like gold, just like you did, which I much appreciated, because you didn't have to, and you did. And but Booker, for whatever reason, went to Vince with this and made an issue out of it, even though Mark Henry and Miss Jackie said, no, that's not the intent this came out with. Rico said he was never treated the same since. He was just shunned and given the cold shoulder. And then he said he asked for a raise because he said he was making under $100,000 a year, and he asked for a raise to $125,000 a year. As you and I both know, during that era, and I thought for the level of performance he was giving, he was certainly worth $125,000 a year if it helps him pay his bills. He said he was having trouble paying his bills with travel expenses and all under his current contract. And he said, when I asked for the raise, I was done. He said, I was not re-signed, and that was it. He said, before then, everything seemed to be going peachy keen. Vince seemed to love me, talk to me all the time. He said I could be on the elevator with him, and he wouldn't say a word to me. And that's straight out of Rico's mouth. Jericho did about a 90-something minute interview with him. Jericho went to Vegas, sat down with him in his home, and interviewed him when he didn't have to. And then it aired here a few months ago, and Jericho said he was just blown away by the stories that this man had to tell and all that he had done. He was a bodyguard for Benny Hinn. I don't even know if you know that. He don't like to talk about it much.
No, I remember when the podcast came out. I didn't listen to it, but I'd heard all the highlights about it, and I heard all the feedback about it. I mean, I was on Chris's timeline, and people just were just blown away by the podcast. And so obviously, like you said, Rico has a hell of a story. It seems like he's done just about everything. And, Chris is a damn good interviewer. So I can imagine it was a hell of a podcast, but I didn't get a chance to hear all of it. So what is his dilemma right now? What are his health problems stemming from?
Well, he's got, Lord, 3 or 4 blood clots in his body, in his legs and his lungs. He's taken extreme blood thinners right now to deal with that. He's got serious heart issues. He's got serious brain issues. His memory is just horrible, and he'll be the first to tell you that. He apologizes when he talks to me every time because he's scared he's going to repeat himself or tell me something that he told me 4 or 5 minutes ago. He said there's been many times he doesn't even realize how he got to a room. And he personally blames Bubba Ray Dudley, and he might be a good friend of yours too. As a matter of fact, I think he is. But he said Bubba beat the crap out of him in the ring one night and really gave him some severe shots to the head. And he said he hadn't been the same since. And trust me, he wasn't trying to make any money off this. He wasn't suing anybody. He wasn't suing WWE. He was just telling me how this stuff happened. He wasn't looking to get a dime out of anybody, and he wouldn't ask for any help out of anybody. I had to do that. And but Bob Holly roughed him up pretty good, and Bubba Ray Dudley roughed him up pretty good. And he said physically he just really hadn't been the same since. And for whatever reason, Holly hated him. And I don't know why, because I've got one rule in life. If Rico Constantino don't like you, I probably don't like you, because that man is loved by everybody. And if Rico's got a problem with you, there's probably something up. So.
Hey, man, how old is Rico now?
I am 57, so Rico is right about a year younger than me. So he's probably right about 56 now.
God dang, when he was in WWE and coming out of OVW, I mean, he's a picture of health, good-looking guy, good physique.
He was 41 by the time you guys called him up. He showed up here at age 39, and everyone there thought, including me, because they always called me Dad. I talked him into putting him with me and making him a heel. They were told he couldn't do it. It would never work. And it's got 6 weeks to work. And if it doesn't, we're taking him back. I said, I feel it's going to work, but give us the 6 weeks. Rico was aboard. He wanted to do it very badly. So we talked Cornette and Davis into doing it. And boy, did it ever work. And that's how we ended up with John Cena with us. As a matter of fact, you might know Vince wasn't too into John Cena. He didn't get him. He even put that on Cena's My Life DVD that I don't get it. I never did get it. I didn't think he had what it took. And the first time we ever heard him said, well, he's not going to need much wrestling ability. His promo is going to carry him through. And he gets criticized a lot for that. And it's one of his criticisms is that he doesn't know a whole lot of moves and he don't know a whole lot of wrestling. Well, he's certainly got a lot of mileage out of not knowing how to wrestle. Another person who did that, I'm sure you know very well, a man called Hulk Hogan. He took the ass drop to a whole new level. And now I heard he had the ability to do it. I heard he had some awesome matches in Japan. But we didn't see a whole lot of that over here at WWE. He didn't have to.
Yeah, but Cena can actually work his ass off. I mean, as long as he's in there with another guy that can really go. I mean, Cena, hell, he's got more moves than I had. He sells his ass off. I mean, I tell you what, I've watched Cena for the last 10 years, 11, however long it's been now. And I saw that kid, when I first met him when he was the prototype. Wasn't that his gimmick? Yeah, when he first came into WWE, I mean, I might have made him done OVW. I don't remember. I just remember him coming up to WWE. His hands, good-looking kid, good body. I don't know about the gimmick, but I mean, just something about him. He'll turn your head when he comes through.
Oh yeah.
And then, all of a sudden, he started kind of doing the rap thing, and then he evolved that into what he's evolved into now. And man, that kid has been lights up. But man, I mean, if I look back at the length of his run versus mine was short. It got dropped on my head and had to ride off into the sunset. But if you want to chalk up or just keep score or tally up high level, like 4 or 5 star matches, going on the Meltzer scale.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, he's had 5 times as many as I had. So I mean, that kid can actually work his ass off. He doesn't get a lot of credit sometimes in that part of the business. But I mean, hey man, the kid is an absolute superstar, and he's been carrying that company on his shoulders for the last 10 years, and that's the bottom line. I mean, unless you can tell me different.
How do you feel about half the crowd just absolutely adores him, and mainly the girls, and the other half mainly doesn't, mainly the men? And he really seems to split an arena, and it doesn't matter what market he goes into. It's not the smart marks on the East Coast, as they like to call them. The South does him the same way now. The South used to not be so much into that, from Nashville, Tennessee on down, maybe even Louisville on down, because he was from here. He was raised here. He was bred here as far as our fans are concerned. They don't know anything about Rick Bassman and him being a robot and the prototype out west. They don't know much about that. As far as they're concerned, he was made and created right here. I'll make him my claim to fame, even though I don't think he cares much for it. But Bolin Services have really had a good role at putting people in the WWE. All the other managers in OVW, I think, sent 1 or 2 combined. That was Batista. That was sent by Sin, Jimmy's wife. And I sent 54. And I think that was because we got a lot of attention on the shows. I rode with all my guys and went up and down the roads with them. We talked about promos and angles that we could do and what'll get us over with some heat and what can we do within the realms of what we have to work with to get the most. The record speaks for itself. If 54 people went up on my watch and 1 went up on Sin's, there's a reason for that. And then people got to where they were begging to be in some Bolin Services. Even Orlando Jordan, he was in Bolin Services one day and he got called up the next. Now, I probably can't take much credit for that one, but I did.
Yeah, but speaking of the way John splits a crowd, whether they, John Cena, what do they say? Cena sucks. Let's go Cena. Cena sucks.
Let's go Cena. Cena sucks. That's
true.
I
mean,
as long as they're talking, right?
Yeah, but it is 100% respect, and I think some of the people that do the Cena sucks saying, "Hey man, they're just looking for somebody else," or it's almost like a rib, because dude, when Cena goes to the ring, he can be working with a guy, because not everybody on that card is as high as him. Now, you talk about your AJ Styles, your world-class workers. Yeah, that guy can work his ass off, but is he on that level of overness that Cena is? No. On the level of work, he blows almost everybody in the world away. But
my son will agree with you on that. He loves Styles.
When Cena goes to the ring, and when he's in the ring, that place, that arena lights up. I don't care whether it's a 15, 20,000 or an 80,000 seater for a Mania type thing. Right. That crowd is on fire for John Cena. So it's a testament. He has had such an interesting run, but I don't care what anybody says. I mean, first of all, I love John Cena, and I can appreciate being a top guy and seeing everything that he's gone through and seeing everything that he's done, the body of work that he's put up, how hard he works from a leadership standpoint and putting his ass on the line. I mean,
his Make-A-Wish appearances.
Yeah, but that kid's badass. But just as far as splitting that crowd, I mean, it's almost like a rib. And it's like a something to do. But you see when Cena hits that ring, and I'll move on here, but when he hits that ring and they ring that bell, that crowd, if they're not on their feet, they're electric, and they're with every single move. Half of them will flip, midway through the match, or maybe they'll stay true to whatever they're chanting. But when Cena rides off into the sunset and they put his ass in the Hall of Fame, that guy will probably get about a 10 or 15 minute standing ovation. That's how much people, love him or love to hate him, whatever you want to call it. They respect his ass, and that's the bottom line.
Well, do you remember when they tried to make you a full-blown heel, and the crowd was not going to let it happen? And I was one of those that didn't want it either. I am not normally a fan of baby faces at all, but for whatever reason, how you were doing it, your intro music, and the way you did it, you didn't give a shit if people cheered for you or not. you won me. You're one of the few, I guess, technically baby faces I ever cared for. I always rooted for the heels. That's why I fell in love with what Jerry Lawler did. And you saw him in his heyday with that. And if you'll notice, Kurt Angle still gets the same thing to this day. Right. His intro, everybody tells him he sucks, and he loves it.
But they meant it as a compliment just because that was the thing to do back when he was a heel, and it just became the thing to do. Let's go back. Let's talk a little bit about old Lawler. I want to talk about old, are you a Superstar Bill Dundee fan?
I know a lot about him.
Okay.
I was a Lawler fan, but we can talk about Dundee, sure. Yeah, I mean,
first of all, I'm a huge Jerry Lawler fan. Okay, we can talk about his run and why it was successful.
Absolutely.
He was absolutely one of the best talkers in the history of the business, because it'll be funny these days. You'll see someone on a thread or something online say, "Oh man, here's the 5 best talkers of all time," and of course, Lawler's name is never mentioned. Hey man, if you go back and you were there when he's doing those interviews with Lance Russell, and Lance Russell could talk to a deaf mute and actually interview him and answer for him and get that guy over. But when Lawler was there, he would just tell his story. And I mean, he was just a supreme talker. So I think these days, a lot of the modern fans just think of pure trash talk. No, man, We're talking about threading stories together. And that's what Jerry specialized in. And we'll get to his work. Take a quick pause for the calls. Take another sponsor that makes this podcast possible. And that's ZipRecruiter. Check it out. Are you hiring? Are you having trouble trying to find the best candidates? Because that in itself can be tough. With ZipRecruiter, you can post your job to 100-plus job sites with just one click. Their powerful technology efficiently matches the right people to your job. In fact, over 80% of jobs posted on ZipRecruiter get a qualified candidate in just 24 hours. Simply screen, rate, and manage candidates all in one place with ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use dashboard. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. For the listeners of the Steve Austin Show Unleashed, you can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/Steve to check out the service. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/Steve to try ZipRecruiter for free. I'm coming right back with the Starmaker, Kenny Bolin.
We, the entertainment-loving people, demand the best unlimited wireless plan ever from AT&T.
I thought I raised you better than to make demands like that.
You know what? We want even more than that. We want AT&T to give us unlimited entertainment.
What else do you want, a flying car?
Well, maybe HBO included in our plan.
How about a unicorn?
And we want to watch all our favorite shows without paying overages.
Good luck with that.
And we want all of this, plus we want to save $25 on our monthly DirecTV bill.
But you can save me $25?
Well, yeah.
I'm proud of you, son.
Only AT&T offers you unlimited data with HBO included and never pay overages. Visit your local AT&T store and get AT&T Unlimited Plus, our best wireless deal on unlimited data. Plus, save $25 per month on DirecTV. It's entertainment your way.
After 22 gigabytes of data usage, AT&T may slow speeds. Plan includes Stream Saver and videos will stream in standard definition unless you turn it off. $25 DirecTV savings requires AT&T Unlimited Plus. Credits start within 3 bills. Service prices subject to change. Other usage, speed, fees, charges, and restrictions apply. See att.com/unlimited for details.
Hey, my name is James Petrogallo.
I'm Jimmy Wissman.
Please join us every single Tuesday for Crime in Sports.
So fun.
You like sports?
You don't have to.
Let's just set up a context and find out what an idiot did wrong. What do you say?
I'm in.
We're going to do that each and every week. We take an athlete, we break him down, we make fun of everything he's ever done.
Yeah. But in order to do that, we have to build up and tell you all about their career and get you to what, James? To grace.
And then watch them fall from grace.
Who
as
doesn't
they inevitably
like
do.
that?
Join us. Big criminals, small criminals, sports you've never heard of. Doesn't matter. It's the crime. It's the comedy. It's such a good time. Join us every Tuesday for Crime in Sports.
You can join us every Tuesday at podcast1.com, the Podcast One app, or subscribe on all Apple products.
Find us every Tuesday and laugh at people.
This is Steve Austin Unleashed.
All right, I'm back with Kenny Bolin, Starmaker. Right before we left off, I mentioned Jerry Lawler and I mentioned Superstar Bill Dundee. All of a sudden, there was a smirk. I'm sitting there looking at Kenny Bolin. He's in, where are you at, Louisville, Kentucky?
Yes, Louisville, Kentucky. Cherokee Road, about 1.9 miles from the Louisville Garden.
I am in Los Angeles, California, and I said Superstar Bill Dundee, and I said, well, I know of him, but You didn't say you was a fan. Here's the thing. I learned so much when I first broke in Dallas, Texas, 89, was in that damn wrestling school for 5 months, 1 day a week with 30 other people. Time in the ring was very minimal. I had my first match. That was about the time when Jared had bought the territory from Fritz von Erich.
What year was this?
It was 89, 90.
Oh, you didn't even see the good Jerry Lawler.
No. Well, I did on video.
Okay. Well,
So anyway, I'm green as grass, and, I go up to Jarrett, and, I'm working on a freight dock on Friday nights and Saturday mornings. The heels are coming into territory, and I'm a white meat baby face, long blonde hair, kind of jacked up. And those heels are beating the shit out of me. And so, I say to Jerry, this is this is the hands-on, which I was talking with Chris Jericho earlier in the podcast. I went up to Jarrett, 2 months in the business. I said, hey, Jerry, I said, when do you think I can start working full-time? And I was still working full-time on the freight dock. And he goes, hell, Steve, I think you're ready now. We'll send you to Memphis next week. And sure enough, there I was driving across, the country to start off in Mid-South Coliseum where Dutch Mantel had the book. And so, Dutch had the book for a while, and then Lawler got it back. But anyway, so I would be in the ring with Superstar, and I'd be in the ring with Lawler when Lawler had the book. So when I was with Superstar, it was a real interesting education process because, Kenny, when you first break into business and you're 6'2", 255, jacked up and long blonde hair, you're working with a Superstar, and he's 5'7", about 200. You just think you're just going to just thrash him, maybe he'll get something in and you'll do the finish. Well, I had a come to Jesus meeting with the Superstar. That's the toughest 5'7" guy I've ever been in the ring with because he was the man. He was the veteran. He called the match. He was the boss. He taught me right from wrong, and I was greener than shit. And I loved working with Superstar Bill Dundee. He helped me out so much, and you got to respect a guy like that who's in a money position. Of course, he drew a lot of money, him and Lawler together.
Yeah.
Along with Dutch and all the other guys that had programs over there. But those veterans, they knew they had to take care of their ass, and he did. So anyway, I learned a lot from Superstar, and then I think Lawler had the book at one time. And he booked 3 matches with a young Steve Austin. And we worked Memphis, Louisville, and Evansville. And I'll never forget that first night. And, of course, I'm the biggest Lawler fan alive along with you.
Oh, my. Okay.
So I don't know anything about Lawler. And this is when, you basically called every single thing in the ring other than the finish. And that might change. So I'm out there walking. Yeah, they ring the bell. We're out there walking and kind of, circling in a clockwise motion, counterclockwise, whatever it was. I'm in the middle of the ring with the king, Jerry Lawler, and he's already been in the business probably, 20, 25 years.
72 was when he really cranked it out.
Great worker. And he starts going into ventriloquist mode. And he's calling the first spot as we're circling. And all it is the tackle drop down hip toss after I grab a headlock. And
ventriloquist mode, I hadn't heard that before.
Oh, man. We hadn't even locked up yet. My limited matches I'd had in the ring, I'm used to a collar and elbow tie-up, and that's when we start talking. Well, Lawler, that's just the way he did things. He'd call from a headlock or any position that you were in, but that was the first time, as green as I was, that anybody had called something in that fashion. Now, compound that, Kenny, with the fact that I don't hear worth a shit. So,
we talked about that.
Yeah, he's giving me the ventriloquist. He's calling the spot, and I look at him and I go, and Kenny can see me on video, and I give him the ventriloquist, huh? And he calls the spot again. And I go, huh? And he calls the spot for the third time. I thought it was going to be one of those cases where one of the marks on the front row was going to say, God damn it, he said tackle, drop down, hip toss.
Oh, could I ever see that happening? I got tears in my eyes. I'm like, huh?
I love Jerry Lawler. And after those 3 matches that he booked himself with me, I don't believe we ever worked again. I think we might have worked in WWF. I can't remember. But those are my fondest, funniest memories of working with Jerry Lawler. And he's working with about a guy as green and as rough as you can get, Steve Austin.
I was getting ready to say, I bet when you said, he just totally fell in love with you, didn't he? That's funny. That's funny.
I'll tell you what, one of the things I liked about Lawler was, at the beginning of a feud, the middle of a feud, to the peak of a feud, some of those loser leave town matches that him and Dundee had,
right.
And you saw way more of it than I did, but I've watched those matches, at least 10, 15 times each. So many guys get in a habit of just being in such a rush. And at the peak of a feud, one of Lawler's the greatest things that I loved about him was he had great intensity and great focus, and all the chips were on the line, but he didn't just go out there and just go manic and start off at 6,500 RPM.
Rarely did that ever happen.
Yes, and if he did start off with a brawl or an exchange, it was at the proper pace, and they were still able to build to wherever they were going. But he was just a phenomenal worker, and when you look back at Lawler's work, he was a guy who used wrestling, obviously, in his matches because it was professional wrestling, but it was more, to me, and you can jump in here, but he was more of a brawler/wrestler than a wrestler/brawler.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I would be one of the first to tell you that Lawler, probably as far as wrestling moves knew far less than John Cena.
Right.
And didn't need it. And I was the absolute biggest fan. I used to sit in the Louisville Gardens with 5,000 to 6,000 people in the arena, totally sold out. You had to get there 2 hours early to be guaranteed to get in. Bought my $2.50 ticket when I was 14 years old, when he had become Jerry the King Lawler. Sat in the front row of the cheap seats because I couldn't afford the next level up. They were $4, and to sit ringside was $6. So that was just out of my possibilities of ever happening. And then Jim Cornette and I were discussing. He says, "I've noticed you're the only Jerry Lawler fan in here." He says, "Every fan in here wants to beat the crap out of you because you like Jerry Lawler. My mom has saw you, and she doesn't think you're safe up there. She, being as I take pictures during the matches, Mom thinks that you should sit down here with us in my seat." So that was when I met Jim Cornette and Thelma Cornette for the first time. And I was like, yeah, I'll take a $6 seat as opposed to a $2.50 seat. And then that was where I really could just vocalize to Jerry that I was his only supporter in the building. I don't know how much he appreciated that, because back then you didn't want anybody cheering for you. But I didn't know that.
Right.
So I rooted for him regardless. I sold with him. When he was getting beat up, I was getting beat up. When he was coming back, I'm just up and cheering like I'm rooting for a babyface. Because to me, he was my babyface. I rooted for Jerry Lawler. And then eventually I got to meet him. Jimmy Hart arranged, he noticed I was the only one rooting for Jerry Lawler. And finally in 1970, late 74, Jimmy Hart, who would used to travel up to Louisville with, because this is before he was managing Jerry. He took me backstage to meet him once, and Christine Jarrett wasn't real happy about that Jimmy Hart had brought a fan backstage to meet Jerry Lawler when he was a heel. And so we had to assure her that the secret was safe, and I would reveal nothing, that I'm just a fan and just thrilled to meet him. And then Jerry and I formed a great friendship and have been dear friends with him probably since late 74, knowing that I was his first and only and biggest fan in Louisville, Kentucky.
What was it about the heels? Or did you like all the heels, or was it just Lawler because he was so entertaining?
It was Lawler because it was so entertaining. There was something about him because I used to watch wrestling with my grandpa. I used to watch the Sheik. I watched the Legionnaires, the Valiant Brothers, Pepper Gomez. I used to see a lot of the Chicago wrestling because we had a big old antenna that we would turn to the city of the wrestling that we wanted to watch. We had amplifiers on it and all kinds of stuff. And that was back in the 3 to 4 channel days, Steve. I don't know how things were where you were raised, but cable didn't come to me until 1982. Yeah, about 82. So we had antennas to be able to watch our wrestling. And that was our cable, and we would turn the antenna to the city that we wanted to watch. So my dad, Johnny, God rest his soul, he hated Jerry Lawler with an absolute passion. And whenever Jerry Lawler would beat up Jerry Jarrett, my dad would get mad and turn the television off. And there I am sitting there with 40 minutes of the show left, and he wouldn't let me turn it back on. So finally I had to work with my uncle to get my own TV where I could just watch the shows in my bedroom, where Dad wouldn't get mad at Lawler and turn the TV off. I can't believe you like that big mouth son of a bitch. I ought to kick you out of the house just for liking that son of a bitch. And he hated Jerry Lawler with a passion until he finally met him later in life, I think maybe around 1990 or so, I introduced Dad to Lawler, and then everything was cool. But oh God,
but see, that's the right kind of channel changing heat, where you're changing the channel just because you hate the guy so much. Because these days, the other kind of channel changing heat is, hey man, this guy sucks. I ain't watching him. That was shoot heat right there.
This was sheer shoot heat. He despised Lawler. And I don't know what made me like him. I felt at that time we looked a little bit alike. Johnny was my stepdad anyway. And I remember when I was helping Jerry sell gimmicks at Rupp Arena, me and Miss Jarrett and Jimmy's mother were selling Lawler's gimmicks during intermission and before and after the show. And a fan come up to him after the show. We're all packed up. We're ready to go. And Jerry's going to eat with us. And a fan walked up and said, hey, so does this guy here, is this your son? Is Kenny your son? Jerry looked at him. He says, how damn old do you think I am? And I looked at him. I said, shut up, Dad, and let's go eat dinner. And he was only 10 years older than me, but I called him Dad that night, and that really won me over. So, but no, I just loved everything he did. And I felt that one day I could do what he did. And Steve, this is probably ignorant as shit, but in high school, my goal was to make all 900 students in Oldham County High School from grades 9 through 12 despise me. I went in with Lawler's attitude. I talked shit on everybody. I talked smack on everybody. I had people convinced that I know damn well I couldn't whip, that I could whip them, and I'd cut promos on them like Lawler did. And I'm not blowing my own horn, but I was pretty good at it, even in the 10th, 11th, and 12th grades. And a lot of people who could whip my ass wouldn't try me because I would talk myself in or out of the fight. And I said, well, yeah, we can go up behind that bus, but it's going to be mighty embarrassing for you, son. Your ass is going to get whipped right here in front of everybody. So if you want to go out behind that bus, we can do it. Or just shit like that. And I guarantee you, there was many in that high school that could whip me, but it never happened because they didn't want to take the chance. But the guy that was a wrestling, of course, back then it wasn't cool to be a wrestling fan. I was laughed at. And then my 25-year reunion, I had actually made it on television here, and DVDs were being sold all over the world, and I had some level of fame. And, oh, my God, I was their best friend then, patted me on the back. You're the only one that did what you said you were going to do. You've never worked a day in your life because you do what you love. And I said, that you've nailed on the head.
Here's something for you. Why wasn't it cool to be a wrestling fan back then?
Well, for whatever reason, at Oldham County High, everybody thought that they were above wrestling, and there were the accusations that wrestling was fake. This is before anybody really knew. And everyone had their suspicions. Oh, I can't believe you like that fake stuff. And in the minute they would go into that, you remember at one night when Tojo Yamamoto did this? And it was always be a Tojo story when someone wanted to tell me back when wrestling was real, or when Gorgeous George did this, Tojo did that, Jackie Fargo did this. Well, it was real back then, but as time developed, well, maybe it's fake. And but Vince, had not exposed wrestling at that time, and you were laughed at by many. I mean, of course, wrestling fans didn't, but there weren't that many of us that would come out of the closet and admit it. Many of us loved it, but very few of us would admit it. So those of us would admit it. A friend of mine was a huge fan of Sam Bass. Another guy, a huge fan of Jerry Jarrett. Another guy, a huge fan of course, me, like in Lawler. And then, of course, Jackie Fargo. So we would walk around in the hallways as Lawler, Bass, Jarrett, and Fargo, representing our favorite wrestlers from like age 14 to age 18. And we thought it was cool. We didn't care if people laughed. I wore Jerry Lawler T-shirts to school. He was a heel. And he sold shirts. I don't know if he sold many of them or not, but I sure as hell bought one. And I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world that I had an artwork Jerry Lawler shirt with him wearing a crown and a smirk on his face. And I still have that picture to this day. I don't have the shirt because it wouldn't fit. But I do have the artwork. And I was just so proud to be a Lawler fan. I couldn't believe that everybody wasn't a Jerry Lawler fan.
Well, I thought that, going back to my school days, I started watching wrestling when I was 7 or 8 years old, and, our antenna was pointed towards Houston. We got Houston wrestling from Paul Bosch.
What city did you live in?
That was when we moved to Edna from Victoria, which is where I would sail it from later on in my WWF days.
Right.
But I'd be down there, started watching wrestling at 7 or 8 years of age, and all through high school, junior high, high school. Nobody ever talked to me about wrestling because I don't think really any of the other kids were into it. So it wasn't like it was really uncool to be a pro wrestling fan, but nobody else was a fan. So I guess it was something I kept to myself because no one ever really talked about it.
What year was this?
Well, my high school years, if I graduated in 83, you're talking about, 80 through 83. I started watching when I was born in 64, so I probably started watching in 72.
75 to 79 for me, so we're pretty close.
But, it's funny when you talk about those Lawler stories. I remember going, again, show the ignorance of a green wrestler coming into the territory. And I believe, Lawler or Dutch had the book. But I remember, getting on.
Another guy I love, too. Dutch has been very implemental in my career. He's been very helpful, very kind, and I love him to death. I don't know.
Dude, are you kidding me? When I rolled in, it was me, Dutch, and Chris Champion riding in my Hyundai Excel. Dutch was riding shotgun. I was driving. They put the gas in the car. I was making $15 a night. I was starving. Dutch was chewing all my chewing tobacco and filling my brain with nothing but knowledge, stories, and bullshit. And you know how quick-witted Dutch is. One time, I said, let me tell you something. And Dutch cut me off right there, and he goes, you can't tell me nothing. He goes, you can ask me something, but you can't tell me nothing. Dutch.
You know why I know that's true? Because I am sure he said the exact same thing to me at an IWA show that when I was first getting going in Louisville, he tutored me through the whole thing and made me keep my sanity because I hated working for them. But I did it as a favor for Dennis Corluzza. Don't know if you knew him or not.
No.
But Dutch really saved me and kept me from doing a lot of stupid shit and smartened me up and taught me the right way to do it. And the biggest quote he ever gave me is, Kenny, here's what you do. You're good at this, but I don't know if you're going to be good enough because they don't have managers these days. I don't know if you're going to make it to what you want to do. So if you will treat this as your golf, this is your hobby, and it's going to be a lot less expensive for you than golf because you're going to show up and you're going to make a little bit of money, but treat it like golf. And if you ever get any more than that, you're successful. And I took that and ran with it and really appreciated that advice out of him. But I know he told me what he told you. You ain't going to tell me anything.
Yeah, I got a few of my trademark sayings from Dutch Mantel. And the biggest one was, I think we were riding down the car one time and I'd said something to him and he goes, God damn, you ain't got to get hot about it.
You know who he got that from?
Who?
Bobby Eaton. Bobby Eaton. I use it at least once a week. God damn, you ain't got to get hot about it. Bobby Eaton wore that slogan out. Now, either he stole it from Dutch or Dutch stole it from Bobby, but Bobby is the first person I ever heard say that to me, and I've been around both of them a lot.
Well, I'm a huge Bobby fan. So anyway, that's one of the things I still use to this day, and sometimes out here in Los Angeles, I'll say that to somebody, and they don't know whether I'm shooting or shitting or don't know what the fuck to talk about. And so it catches a lot of people off guard, but everybody that knows me has taken my trademark saying, which I got from those guys. But my Lawler story that I wanted to get in there was going back to my ignorance or greenness in the business, like working with superstar Bill Dundee, 5'7", 200. Hey, Bill's going to get his shit in. He's going to shine. I'm going to get a modicum of heat on him, and he's going to make a hell of a comeback, and then he's going to go over. So I thought I was going to go in there and indestructible, beat everybody up. No, it didn't happen like that. You're green. You don't know anything. On top of not knowing anything, we'd work a sportatorium Friday night. We'd get on that tour bus. We'd drive all night. We'd get to Memphis to work at live TV. And there's Lawler. He's running the show. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, this guy, his gear ain't that great. He's got those long spandex tights. He's got the pullover strap. Of course, pull that strap down. That's going to signify the comeback. Right, and I'm thinking, this guy, he's not jacked up. I'm bigger than he is. And he always gets his promo time. And, why is he running the show? Why is he doing all this? And I was like, when you're young and you're very, very competitive, you're too green to really see what's really happening. Because the same thing, as the years would advance, all of a sudden, 4 years, 5 years in the business, I keep hearing this name, Shawn Michaels. So I get a chance to see Shawn Michaels, and I think, because I'm very competitive, I'm thinking, high spot artist. Well, finally, I get a chance to work with Shawn Michaels. He's not a high spot artist. He's one of the best workers in the history of the business. But because you're so competitive, moving on from your green days, you never ever want to give anybody any credit, or you want to know how the fuck they got to where they got. Well, Lawler was super talented, super smart, and he was running the show. And of course, he's tied in as business partners with Jerry. But when you're young, Kenny, you just see things from a different lens than you do when you step back or you get some experience. And like, okay, here's how and why this all happens like this.
You were seeing all that from a far different perspective than I was, because if Jerry Lawler put on trunks like you and walked out with black boots and trunks and no crown, it would have never worked. He might have
agreed.
Might have had the same promos, might have been the same guy, would not have worked without the tights and the cape and the crown and the smirks and the promo. I don't feel it would have ever worked.
No, I don't think it would have either. And it was he was in the right place at the right time. And I don't say that's a be-all, end-all to anybody's success, because many people say, well, Austin was in the right place at the right time at the whatever.
A lot of places at a lot of times.
At the end of the day, is just a total package, and someone either can pull it off and have the success or they can't. Some people say anybody could have done what Austin did if they'd have been put in the same situation, or anybody could have done what the Undertaker did because, it was just fact it was a cool gimmick. No, nobody could have done that fucking gimmick but Mark.
Yeah.
So each guy is specific to what they accomplished.
I remember Mean Mark and Mark Calloway, and he wasn't that over.
No, well, he wasn't that over, but what he had was the raw tools, 6'10", 270, 280, whatever it was, this mean look about him, whether he's working as the Punisher or Mean Mark.
Yeah.
You could see this gifted athlete who could walk the top rope. I mean, it was graceful as a gazelle at that size and height. He had superstar written all over him. And finally, after, him coming down, I believe Mark had about a year and a half jump start on me in the business. We came to the Sportatorium from Tennessee. We were going to work a television match. This match is on YouTube. It sucks ass. And I'm talking with Mark before the match, and he goes, he was going to have to beat me and have to get his shit in and get over. And he goes, because I look good. And he goes, I'll put over your strength a little bit, and then we'll have a match. Same thing, brother. I couldn't hear a thing. He was calling to me, and he just had to guzzle me up. But, and then you go from USWA or wherever he started and then to WCW, and they didn't see nothing in him. Skyscrapers, they had a couple of pretty cool little things that were halfway there. And then when Vince plucked him out and stuck that gimmick on him, and he made his debut at Survivor Series or whatever the fuck it was, I think he planted snook on his dome. Kids in that crowd were legitimately scared. And so, Mark goes on to have a successful run. No one could have done that but Mark.
Yeah. It was awesome, and once again, not too many bigger Undertaker fans than me. Even when I'd been in the business for quite a few years, me and my son, when the WWE pay-per-views would come on, when Taker's entrance would hit, every light in the house goes out, the Dolby Digital surround sound gets cranked full blast, all 4 subwoofers are turned on, and we envelop ourselves in that entrance. And watching it on the big screen, and you're probably, oh, what a big Mark. Yeah, we all are to a degree. That's why we got in the business. But the Undertaker thing, and what I want to bring up one thing that you did. Me and my son loved it because we called it. William Regal. How good of friends are you with William Regal?
One of my closest friends, former travel partners, a very good friend.
I've only I had lunch with him a couple of times when he was down helping out at OVW. Just a class act and a hell of a guy. I love him to death. He doesn't even know that. But Regal, remember when he was reading his stuff in the ring, his poetry? Me and Chris were sitting there watching the show and said, oh my God, what I would do for Stone Cold Steve Austin to come out right now. Just come out, hit his music, walk to the ring, stun that sumbitch, not say a word, and then go back like he had served his public duty. I'll be goddamn if that music didn't hit. And I was like, oh my God. Oh, I know, I just blew the mics out. Oh my God, it's going to happen. It's going to Steve comes to the ring, gets the nerves, Stone Cold stuns that son of a bitch. Walks out of the ring, goes back, and me and my son pop like 2 teenage kids that we got to call the spot we wanted to see. And that was one of my most memorable things. So stupid. One of the most memorable things to me that you ever did was when you come out and stopped Regal from reading that poetry.
And goddamn, man, me and him had such a history because when he first came over from England into WCW, and I'm thinking, man, who the fuck is this guy? Same thing I say about anybody. It's competitive locker room.
A shooter from hell, from what I understand.
Oh, I mean, but just a super guy and a great worker. And so anyway, he was working with somebody, and I believe he was working Baby. And goddamn, man, he would sell his ass off. He'd grab the top of his ear, and I was sitting there watching, stage right or stage left or through behind some curtain, whatever it was. And I was thinking, I was doing a little bit of business, I think, at the time with Brian Pillman. And I was like, God damn, I said, this motherfucker's good. So after the match, I went over there and, introduced myself to him properly. I said, hey, man, I said, my name's Steve Austin. I said, man, I just want to let you know that was an awesome match, man. I just love the way you sell. And, Steve's been around the horn, a few times and brought up, he didn't come in the easy way. That's for damn sure. And he goes, yeah, that's what we do in it. And me and him we just became fast friends, and we would stay together when we were filming down there in Orlando. We would stay in Kissimmee, and we'd be out all night long drinking at Rover's Return Pub and finding our share of calamity. But yeah, a very dear friend and continues to be to this day. I want to ask you about two names here because you brought both of them up. I brought up the first one. I want to ask you about the superstar Bill Dundee, because is there no love lost there, or just because you were such a Lawler fan? Because superstar Bill Dundee drew a shit pile of money.
Absolutely no heat at all. Dundee and I would like to say are friends. I've been on many shows that he's been on, but as a kid, when I was a fan, and Bill Dundee came in here from Australia with, God, I'm forgetting his partner, his original partner's name. I'm ashamed of myself for doing so, because they were pretty over as a tag team from Australia, and then eventually Dundee got into the singles. But even though I felt I kind of knew what was going on in the business, I was still a fan. I refused to go to the gardens and act like a smart mark and act like I knew everything. I was there to be a fan. I was there to root for Jerry Lawler. And to be honest with you, Steve, I was such a Lawler fan. I'd look at the card, and it was all who Lawler was going to fight. Because as we know, in booking a successful match, you got to have somebody they hate and somebody they love. And if they don't care, then, like, let's say Jerry was going to wrestle one of the undercard guys. Well, I don't care to see that. I love Jerry, but I can see those on television. I wanted to see Lawler LeDuc, Lawler Valiant, Lawler Funk, Lawler Dundee, because that's what we all wanted to see. So from a fan's perspective, I had to hate Bill Dundee. I booed him. I despised him. I hated it when he won. And even though I know that that's just how it's got to go, it just tore me apart whenever Bill Dundee would beat Jerry Lawler. Well, nobody beat Jerry Lawler more than Bill Dundee, because to do proper business, that's how it had to be. Well, as a fan, I'm not seeing it that way. So when Lawler switched face and then Dundee went heel, Dundee would beat Lawler 5 times out of 6, and then Lawler got his in match 6. And boy, that was hard to watch too, because now I'm still a Jerry Lawler fan. And it didn't matter to me if I got to the bell time was 8:05, and if I got to the Louisville Gardens at 9:35, I was cool, because I knew I was still there in time to see Jerry Lawler's match. I bought my ticket, and I did buy them back then until Miss Cornette gave me the hookup. I bought my tickets to go see Jerry the King Lawler. The other stuff on the card was bonus. And if I happened to get there, and I did, I always got there in time, but if I hadn't, I'd have been all right with it. As long as I saw Lawler's match, I was okay. And I was also there to pick up the rats that you all left behind. And there were plenty of them.
Kayfabe.
I didn't think I'd hear that word.
Hey, wait, I got to ask you a Bill Dundee story. Were you there?
Not you, Lawler and Dundee's rats, not you.
Were you there when Superstar had the infamous motorcycle accident?
What year was it?
Oh, it's Jesus Christ, Kenny. You're talking to a guy who got hit in the head with a steel chair for I don't know how many years, and then guzzled beers and whiskey and all the other shit on the road. Come on, you want to pin a date on me?
Give me a ballpark.
God damn, I don't know. It was it probably had to have been early 80s, between 82 and 85.